It hasn't happened yet. Here we are live. Hello, 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 everybody. Good morning, and thank you so much for being here this morning. Today, we are going to be talking about estate planning, which is like, to me, always like the legal term for it, which what we're really going to talk about is what happens to a person's home when they pass away. And what should we know for our parents' houses or for our children? And we are going to dive deep into that with Meghan today. I'll let her introduce herself in just a minute. But for those of you that don't know me, my name is Sabrina Beer. I'm the Director of Digital Media and Education here at Proper Title, your local Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana title agency and national commercial title agent. Thank you for being here. Meghan Stokes is one of my favorite guests. In case you didn't know, she's been on a couple of times because I love the way that she explains this very, very difficult topic. So Meghan, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Sabrina. It's great to be back again. Thank you. My name is Meghan Stokes with Evermore Law Group. We focus on real estate transactions and then also estate planning. And on the estate planning side, we really put a focus on making sure that people don't leave their loved ones with a mess when the inevitable happens, because at some point we are unfortunately going to die. And so the goal really is more than just getting a plan in place. We need to make sure that that plan is going to work how you want it to and make things as easy as possible for our loved ones and our family when the time comes.
Yeah, even when you just said it's inevitable, we're all going to die. Like the word die, it hits you in the chest. It's like, oh yeah, I guess that's true, right? And these conversations are so hard. So I just want to start off by saying, y'all, please have these conversations with your loved ones. They are so important. Okay, so let's dive into it, Meghan. So about a year ago, my mom said to me, "Don't worry, Sabrina, we're gonna leave you the house." And I was like, "Okay, Mom. Well, I've heard Meghan and Alike talk about this kind of stuff a lot. What does that actually mean?" So, Meghan, let's talk a little bit about different ways that someone can leave you the house. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions is I have a will, and Sabrina, your name is in the will that I'm going to give you the house. What does that mean?
So that means that the house has to go through probate, assuming that it's not owned jointly with somebody else. So if it is owned jointly with your parents as, let's say, joint tenants, then your surviving parent will inherit the deceased parent's portion. But then when your second parent passes, it's going to go through probate. So if you leave it in a will, you are mandating the probate process, which can be over a year. There are a lot of costs involved with that. Not only costs for hiring an attorney to move the property through probate, but you have to make sure that you're maintaining the home. So if there's a mortgage, the mortgage still has to be paid. If, let's say, it's a condo, the assessments still have to be paid. Homeowners insurance, property taxes, basic utilities. You have to keep the property in the same condition that it is when the person passes. So all of those costs have to be paid.
Yeah. So let me interrupt really quick because I'm not 100% sure. I want to back up. I'm not sure 100% sure people understand what the word probate even means. Like when you say you're going to have to go into probate, like what is that?
So probate is court. It's a court process that a person's assets have to pass through before ownership can be transferred to the ultimate beneficiaries. So in your question, Sabrina, in order for you to inherit the home, it has to pass through probate before ownership is transferred to you.
Even though there's a will that says the person's wishes, still you have to go through probate. Probate can take on average, probably the average is probably higher than a year, but a year. And during which time, now all of a sudden I have another expense because I have to maintain that home for a year in order to, that sounds like a load of crap, Meghan. That's terrible.
I know it's a racket. Technically,
So
the
how do we
estate.
avoid it?
Yeah. Well, technically, the estate is the one that has to pay those
What
fees
does that
and
mean?
costs. So let's say, in addition to the home, there is $50,000 in a bank account. The $50,000 from the bank account can be used to pay, should be used to pay like ultimate expenses, so funeral, any last medical bills, and then also costs of administering the estate. So it can go to pay the mortgage, it can go to pay the property taxes. But what happens if, like most people, there aren't tens of thousands of dollars in the bank account and somebody is living paycheck to paycheck, or maybe a little, like there's a little bit of a cushion in the bank account, but it's paycheck to paycheck. What usually ends up happening is family members will front the money because they don't want foreclosure to happen on the property from a lender. And that's not always guaranteed that we can get a mortgage servicer to agree to pause payments while the probate process is happening. I have one client who his dad left him a condo and a will, but he had no liquid assets. The son didn't have the money to pay the mortgage, didn't have the money to pay the assessments. So he didn't.
Oh.
And foreclosure was started. The condo association started legal proceedings as well to collect on, I think it was $14,000 in past assessments and all of that stuff the son had to deal with. He eventually got reimbursed by the estate once the home was sold, but that's a bunch of extra stress. He had to go out of pocket when he didn't have the money to go out of pocket, and all things that could be avoided by having a trust, a living trust. And
Well,
that's what I recommend.
yeah. So before we get there, so if I just have a will, I have to, if my parents just, my parents passed away, they in their will it says Sabrina's going to receive this property. I still have to go to probate, which is what we just talked about.
Yep.
Now, what are before you explain what they are, just like a list, what are the other options, if there is even a list? What are the other options that someone can do outside of will / probate, or no will / probably longer probate? What are the other options?
So Illinois allows something called a transfer on death instrument. We call it a TODI. That allows you to assign a beneficiary to the home. So that's one option. Other assets, I know we're focusing mainly on the home, but other assets, you can do beneficiary designations as well. Not all, but some. There's problems with that, which we could probably do a whole nother live stream on that. A living trust is also a good way to avoid probate. It's a big, very popular probate avoidance tool.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the living trust in just a second because that's like a whole little deep dive. But the TODI, or transfer on death instrument, if you're in Indiana, y'all, it's transfer on death deed. TOD, what do they call it? Anyway, the transfer on death instrument, can you just briefly explain that? And also, that is just for this particular piece of property, right?
Correct. Yep. So it's something that you record with the county that the property is located in. So for Cook County properties, we record it with the Cook County Clerk's Office. It identifies the piece of property by the PIN and the address, and you assign, upon your death, the property will go to beneficiaries. You can do multiple beneficiaries and assign each a certain percentage interest. You can even name contingent beneficiaries as well. So if your primary beneficiary is not living, then you have like a backup. And you record that with the county, and it just puts it on record so that when you pass, the property can avoid probate.
So it avoids probate. And then, for instance, in my scenario again, if my parents had me on a TODI, then then when they pass, then I would be able to just sell the property, put it on the market the next day, or what does that look like?
Not quite the next day. You need the death certificate and you need to record essentially an acceptance of the property with the recorder, but a lot quicker than probate. It's not, in my opinion, the best way
Yeah,
to pass property on, for a number of reasons. Again, probably a whole nother live stream on it.
totally. Yeah.
But there are better ways to leave property to people.
Right. Okay, so we have just to recap a little bit. If you just have a will, you're going through probate, you have to maintain
Mhm.
the property in probate. It's going to be an extended period of time. It's also expensive. And so that is our least favorite option, y'all. So ask your parents or look at yourself when you're thinking about your own life. And if you just have a will, let's step it up and give Meghan a call. The other thing that is common for just the house in and of itself, just strictly just the house, is the TODI, transfer on death instrument. There are a lot of reasons why you don't want to do that as well. So you need to talk to Meghan about your unique situation and circumstances. But then the other option, which is probably the best, I would imagine, and I'm going to let you talk about it, is what's called a living trust. Not to be confused with the land trust when people
No.
buy their property in the ABC Trust LLC. This is the same word as trust, but this is called a living trust. And so, Meghan, talk a little bit about what that is in the most layman terms possible. What is a living trust?
Yes. So a living trust is also known as a revocable trust. So if anyone's heard that term, that's what a living trust is. You, as the grantor, so the grantor is the creator of the trust, you create this trust, you name yourself as the trustee, which means you hold title to the assets on behalf of the trust, and you name yourself as the lifetime beneficiary as well, which means you can benefit from the use of the assets. All three of those roles work together to allow you to change the terms of the trust as many times as you want. So if you for instance, somebody has a third child down the line, they can add that child to the trust, make changes to the distribution there. You use the assets the exact same way as you always have been, which is a real big plus with living trusts. You have full control and flexibility over use of the assets, and you don't have any change to your tax returns every year, which is nice as well.
Mm-hmm.
And all
And
of that lets you avoid probate, excuse me.
And what happens if let's say I have a living trust right now and I live in this condo and then I'm like, I don't want to live here anymore and I sell it and I buy a new condo. What happens then?
You can sell it and buy a new one. You give one piece of paper to the title company at before closing to let them know that you have the power and authority to sell the property and purchase a new one. If you purchase it right into the trust, that is easy to do as well. It's a lot of people think it's a big hurdle, but really it's just a matter of a piece of paperwork.
Yeah.
Super
And
easy.
then in addition, in this trust, I also can put my other assets,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
So it's
Yep.
not just for real property.
Nope. Anything that you own, you can put your personal property into it, bank accounts, brokerage accounts. You can even do retirement and life insurance. Those are put in through beneficiary designations. That's how we get them into the trust. But anything and everything you own, you could put in the trust. Absolutely.
And I can also, like you said, change the beneficiaries. What if, like, I want to give it to a certain person, I want to have the certain person as
Mhm.
my beneficiary, and then something happens in life and I want somebody else to have it. I can
Yep.
change that as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I recommend that you with an attorney, you look at the trust at least every 3 years because our lives are going to change. People are going to come into our lives, come out of our lives. Laws are going to change, and hopefully our assets will always continue to appreciate and grow. And there may be changes needed down the road that you're not aware of because you just don't know. So an attorney review every 3 years at least is highly recommended.
And what happens, Megan, with a will? Like, let's say I wrote a will for myself, and that 5 years ago, and just now, I created a trust, and they're not the same.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which one, like, when I pass away, like, which one is the right one?
Great question. So when we're looking at a will versus a trust, the ownership of the asset will dictate which instrument, which document controls. So with a trust, we need to do something called trust funding. So, Sabrina, if you own a property in your individual name, we want to do a deed transfer to Sabrina Beer as trustee of the Beer Living Trust. And then that will pass according to the terms of the trust. If you don't do that and you have a will, then that passes according to the terms of the will. If you just have a trust and you don't have a will and the property is owned in your individual name, then that passes according to the state intestacy statutes. That's just a fancy legal term for what happens with your things if you have no will in place. The state says who gets it. There's like an order of priority.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
No.
So you need, if you have a trust, you also need a will.
It's called a pour over will. Yep. It's a backup to the trust. So that's just in case something doesn't get titled into the name of the trust. As a plan B, we can get it into the trust after the probate process happens. That's really good to have, because what if you miss an asset? You just forget that you have like a retirement account from 4 jobs ago. A lot of people don't roll them over.
Yeah.
You have a bank account that you haven't touched in years and you forgot about. So that all just kind of groups everything into the trust upon someone's passing, and then everything can be distributed according to the terms of the trust.
Meghan, crypto accounts too?
You can, yeah. Yep.
It
is very dependent on whether you have it on an exchange or if you have it on cold wallet. The exchanges have very different and specific processes that they follow in order for you to be able to put them into a trust. If you have a cold wallet, you really just need the serial number, and that's how you, just write there's a assignment that we can put into place, and that's a lot easier than an exchange.
Interesting. Again, everybody that's listening, these conversations are so hard to have. We are headed into the summer. So if you're going on a road trip, or you're going to a lake house, or you're going someplace super chill, that's the best time to bring this up with your family and your significant other and your parents and all the people that you love, because like Meghan said, it's inevitable. We are going to die. Oh,
I know.
Every time.
Hopefully, like as my husband says, 100 years from now.
Yes, exactly.
Advances are going. Hopefully, it'll be a very long time, but it is going to happen.
Right. And so the last thing in the world we want to do is, we spent our whole lives building up these things, and then we want to give them to our kids, or our parents, want to give them to us, and for it to then be decided by the state. Oh, that's not what we want to do. So have these conversations. Call Meghan. Her contact information is here below, whether you're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever. Her contact information is right here. It's also right here on the screen right now. Meghan, we just touched the surface on a lot of things.
Yeah. I hope you've been taking notes of topics for future ones, because I know we always haven't a little bit of a hard time coming up with new stuff.
Well, I think there's 4 of them in here that we can dive into for sure. I mean, we talked about everything, y'all, whether it's wills, trusts, transfer on death instruments, what happens to your personal property versus your real property, beneficiaries. I mean, there's so many things to talk about, which is why you should really have a conversation with someone like Meghan that does this for a living. Also, Meghan is also a fantastic real estate attorney. And so don't forget about the real estate deals as well. And they kind of go hand in hand, right? So if you are purchasing or selling real estate, it's probably also a good time to talk about your estate plan. So Meghan, thank you for letting me tap into your brain.
Anytime, Sabrina.
Even while you're in the car. Busy.
I know. Meetings never go according to plan, unfortunately.
But it all works out. Meghan, thank you again for being here. Everybody, thank you for listening, and be kind to each other.
Yes.
Bye.
Have a great day.
You too.